going on, everybody, and welcome back. So in this video we're going to be working on stage 2, which is part 2 of this video series of turboing the Avalanche, and we are going to work on doing quite a few things actually. I want to put my injectors in, so we got to get ready for the turbo. Obviously we need to be able to have enough fuel to support this engine under boost. It's going to need a lot more fuel because we're going to make a lot more power, obviously. So we have these injectors here, which are decapped and flow tested by myself. I have a video on it if you guys need to see that. But these are 801cc injectors, or that one is. This one is 800, 811, and I've got 817. So they're all around 800 or maybe a little more. 796. So he's around 800. This guy is 810. 800, also 807. So you see we're all in this range here, and I selected these injectors based on all my tests. So I want to go ahead and put these guys in. I showed you the decap process. If you guys want to see that, like I said, there's all kinds of stuff on that on YouTube and on my channel as well. But today, to do this, I want to take it one step further, and since I'm already have the fuel rails pulled out of this thing and probably off, I was thinking I might as well just pull the entire intake manifold off to change the gasket, because I know I have a leak in the intake manifold gasket. It kind of whistles when it's cold, and I know that's just going to be intake plenum leak. So I have a new set of gaskets right here. So these guys have been sitting around for a long time, and they're ready to get used. So we'll use these new intake gaskets, and I also got a valley cover gasket because I think that my valley cover is leaking, and I'll put the knock sensors in some new little O-rings here. These guys came for the knock sensors. So we got all that going on, and this is our stage 2, and we're getting ready for stage 3, which is going to be the camshaft and valve spring upgrade. So that's going to be stage 3. But stage 2 is fixing some oil leaks and changing out some gaskets so we can get our big injectors in here, and then we'll get it tuned. So I'm going to start by tearing this thing down. I think I'm just going to go one by one here. Pop the evap valve of a canister, I'm sorry, my bad, purge valve out of here, and then we can pop the map sensor, unplug that, and just go over the whole loom here, take the harness off, and then I'll probably start taking all the harness off down here, off of all the injectors, and we're going to get that all laid to the side so we can go ahead and pull this intake and have some room to work. So just going to be careful that we don't drop any bolts, because we don't want to drop anything down into the cylinders, and I'm going to probably look in all the cylinders, and I'll have paper towels stuffed in them so I don't get anything in there while I'm doing the valley cover job, because it makes me nervous to have open holes here. We don't want any bolts to fall in or anything like that. So that's just one precaution I'm going to take, but I'm going to go ahead and get started, and I'll leave you guys on the time lapse. So guys, hopefully you enjoyed that time lapse. I'll try to cut out the parts where I was doing nothing, but I did get the intake manifold off. It's really not too bad. I ended up taking off this hose right here off of the vacuum pump here. That was easier. Fuel rails came off. You need fuel rail disconnect. You need the blue one, and you need the yellow one in order to do the feed and return lines. You need them. I mean, there's probably a way you could do it without it, but it's good to have, and you don't break anything. So it looks like we did have some leakage going on. I think this thing was burning a good amount of oil. I got to check on the PCV system. I'm probably going to delete that and add a catch can setup anyway. But while we're in here, I'm probably going to clean all this out just because I'm a freak like that. So I'm going to probably use some rags, get this all cleaned up. and then I'm going to pull off the valley cover as well. You can see I got everything stuffed with paper, so we don't have the opportunity to get anything in there. I already went and vacuumed everything out. It was all full of nuts and stuff from rodents living underneath this over the years. And to our surprise here, we still have the original orange gaskets on here, which, they stopped using these a long time ago. They are they're not as good as the new design, the green ones, and these are the original ones from 2003. So interesting. I knew I had a vacuum leak. I heard it all the time, and these gaskets were pretty much compromised. You can see here. See if I can get it there. It's not reflecting, but yeah, basically that gasket's compromised. It's all jacked up there and jagged, and so is this top one. And I think that there was definitely air leaking past these guys. I could hear the whistle. So if you guys have a whistle, that is probably from this. And also these foam things right here, you can tell they're all soaked. Those things retain water, moisture inside the intake and on top of the valley cover. And what can happen is you can see you have your knock sensors right here, and this knock sensor under here they can get water inside of here, and I have yet to check if we actually have that problem, but it does look already, I can see it is wet in there, and yeah, it is full of water. So we're gonna have to get the water out of there, and that's a common problem on these guys, and there's that redesign with those other gaskets. So we'll have to suck the water out, make sure that everything's not rotted. We may need to get new knock sensor harness, and we may need to get the knock sensors themselves if they're really that bad, because I'm going to be using them to tune up the timing. So I'm going to go ahead and check on it and see how everything looks. But yeah, next step is valley cover, and we'll get into this. So I've been putting in some work, doing some cleaning, and all that oil burning definitely took its toll. It was definitely going right in the intake here. We could see there. So I don't know. Yeah, definitely in the PCV. So I think that was our problem. We're gonna have to address the PCV situation, and that's where I think most of that oil is probably coming from, and we're sucking it in. So we're gonna have to put that to a stop. We're gonna do a catch can setup, so hopefully that should be alleviated. But this thing looks a lot better. I cleaned the whole underside. All these areas here I hit with, ended up using gasoline to do most of the cleaning, and it turned out really good. Everything looks really clean. The GoPro may die soon, so I'll make it quick. But we cleaned it, razor bladed it too, scraped all the plastic, and I also did the whole top of the cylinder heads. So that's it, guys. This is where I'm going to stop. I took all the injectors out of the rail, and I officially have everything apart that's going to be apart. I'm not going any further than this for this occasion, but I have all the parts to put it back together, with the exception of that knock sensor. So I'm going to try to get that knock sensor, and we should be good to go. I think I have everything that I need to refresh this thing with these bigger injectors. So yeah, this should be pretty good. Like I said, pressure wash the intake tomorrow, get that all cleaned up nice, and I think this thing should look pretty fresh, all cleaned up. So I'm gonna stop for tonight, but I will pick up on this in the morning. So guys, I wanted to go to the junkyard this morning, but it is raining, so I'm gonna try to wait until that stops, and then I'm gonna get out there and do what I have to do at the yard. But for right now, I've just been picking away at this job here. I put all the injectors in that I had set up. The way I understand it is if you have your injectors flowed and you know all of your flow rates of each individual injector, which I did, you want to pick the largest or the most flowing, highest flowing, I don't know why I can't talk this morning, the highest flowing injectors of the bunch. So for me, I had 817 and 811 were my highest flowing injectors. So what I did was I put those on cylinders 7 and 8. So apparently cylinder 7 seems to be set up in the best configuration for the intake manifold, and it just kind of runs straight back through the tube and over to cylinder 7 because it's right in the back there. At least that's what I've heard. So it tends to run the leanest because it has the most airflow to it. So therefore, you really want to put your highest flowing injectors in cylinders 7 and 8 because they're at the back. And they also receive cooling last. Apparently, as the coolant runs through the block, it runs to the back last. So that is what I was reading. I don't know if that's all true. That's just something I read really quick. I had heard about 7 being one of the hotter cylinders. So 7 and 8, and then I put the next 2 highest flowing next here in 5 and 3 and 5, and then the rest of them is all the other ones. So it's not too critical, everything else, but it is what it is. I think that it'll be fine, and I'm overthinking it, but if you do have something that's running lean on one hole, you don't really want to have it be a meltdown or anything like that. So I think that'll be good in keeping this thing nice and reliable. We have some higher flowing injectors in the back, and even if it runs a little rich, I'm okay with that. I'd rather have that than have something melt. So we should be good with that, and all we have to do is tune them for our 76 pounds an hour, which, like I said, if you guys want to watch that video, it is up there. You can watch how I did all the flow testing on these, or you can just send them out and have them flow tested. But I do recommend doing that based on me having some clog ones. I think if you pull them out of a vehicle that is at least running and driving with no misfires and stuff like this one was, the injectors that came out of this are probably good, but I didn't want to touch those injectors out of this just because I wanted to save that for if I need to put them back in here. So that's why I ended up getting junkyard injectors for this vehicle and the Honda as well. But yeah, anyway, my trick for these, it's pretty easy. All you do is bang these caps back on after decapping them and put the O-rings in there. And I've just been using a dead blow just to put them like this and give them a nice tap, get them in. And you see we have all of our flow rates here. This is the lowest flowing 796 one. So I'm going to put him in the front, cylinder number 1, and we got to put all of our little clips back on. They hold the injectors into the rail, and so yeah, we'll be all set pretty soon. But I put a little bit of grease on some cardboard here, and I rub it around the top O-ring, and that helps me to seat it into the rail nice and easy, and then come out easy too when you have to work on everything. So that's the best way to do it, in my opinion, is a little bit of grease, and to get them out, a little bit of WD-40 or fluid film or whatever you have. But I'm going to do that, and I still want to try to pressure wash this morning, and then we'll move on to trying to reassemble this thing. So I just went ahead and cleaned everything off really good. I got back from the junkyard. I'm ready to put the valley cover on. I pressure washed the intake manifold this morning, let it dry. Everything's looking really nice and clean. So much cleaner than it was. All the oil, sludge, and grime is off for the most part. So it's going to look really nice and clean up in there. So I'm going to go ahead and get this thing ready to slap back on after I throw this back on. I used a pry bar here to pull out these little guys here for the knock sensors to keep the water out of here. So I just use a pry bar to pry it out. I'm going to try to scrape all this rust, and I did end up getting a knock sensor. I don't know what I did with it. It is somewhere over here. This is one of the good ones, and here's the other one right here. So I got 2 nice looking knock sensors now. I should be able to replace that old rotted one, and then we'll be good to go. So I flipped this thing over. I got my new gaskets on here. I'm about ready to slap this guy down. I got the manifold valley cover put on, and these bolts here, they want you to torque to 18 foot-pounds. Not that it normally would matter. I normally would just crank them down. Tight is tight, too tight's broken, just keep them snug. But it does seal oil in, and 2 of them, actually 3 of them in the back were like finger loose. When I had taken this thing apart, 3 of them were just finger tight, which is pretty interesting to me. I don't know if they had loosened or if this had been off before, but 3 of the bolts were totally loose on the manifold plate, and that could have definitely been contributing to the oil leak that I had. So torqued them all down. We should be in a lot better of a spot. And the knock sensors have torque specs as well. Those I put at 15 foot-pounds, so they can accurately read the engine knock. So I did those. The new ones I got from the junkyard, and I had the new rubber seals that I banged into the bottom of the manifold plate from the Felpro gasket kit. So we are totally resealed. Should keep the water out of the knock sensors and water out of the engine as well. And we should be good to go here, hopefully, without putting the foam back in the intake. They normally had foam here and here, and that would keep all the water inside of the intake. So this foam we're going to leave out, and that is part of it. So I assume this thing never had a knock sensor problem because, you know, it never had this foam removed, and typically they'd remove the foam when they did that. So probably never got addressed on this motor, but we're going to fix it now. And we have a new knock sensor. Got rid of this rotted knock sensor. Luckily it didn't make it to the wiring harness, so we didn't need to put a harness in it. So that's that, and I'm going to go ahead and throw this thing all back together, show you guys how to do the tuning. So guys, prime example of why you always need to check inside. I just removed all the paper towels. I knew I was super careful, and I knew I didn't get anything in any of the cylinders or any of the holes in the cylinder head that lead to the valves. And I knew I didn't get anything in there, but I was like, let me just check. And I stuck my fat head in there, and you know what? In cylinder number 5 back here, in cylinder number 5, I found this right here, which is like a little piece of rubber. Granted, probably would have just chewed it up and spit it out, but you know, if the valve shut on this, I certainly could have bent the valve. You know, I doubt it, but it's possible. And if that was a little bolt that was stuck in the intake from the last person that took this apart, had this something here and it fell in, you didn't know, you didn't check, you thought you were careful, but it was in there, you're in trouble. So I'm happy that I checked, and I think I may have just saved my butt. Maybe not, but it was worth it for me to have checked. So I'm happy about that. And now I'm going to go ahead and slam this intake on with these new gaskets, the new redesigned green ones. I'm pumped, guys. This looks so much nicer. Everything's clean, everything's regasketed. I'm going to really drive this thing with confidence now. So yeah, no more whistle, no more vacuum leak, and should be running even better. So guys, in that last clip I had the intake on the bench, and since then I threw the intake back on, and I had the injectors already installed, plugged them all in, and I went ahead and modified the tune. All I did was change the injector flow rate under the top engine tab, change the injector flow rate versus KPA to what my calculated value was from my flow test, which is 76.7 or something like that. So just shy of 77 pounds, which I think may have been a little high. I'm not sure. I did do what I was supposed to, and you know, maintain the correct fuel pressure, 50 something psi, 55ish, and this thing actually does have 55 psi at around idle, so it should have been pretty consistent with what they flowed, but maybe it was a bit off. I did have to add a little bit of fuel to the whole map just to get it to run. So based on that, I'm not sure. Maybe they flowed more or less or something, but I'm not the expert on HP tuners. It's very difficult for me. I'm trying to learn, but anytime I have an issue or problem, I don't really have anybody to ask. So just figuring out the problems myself takes me some time. I haven't filmed too much of myself tuning just because I'm not the most confident with it, but I'm getting there. I'm hopefully trying to be more competent with tuning, and I'll be able to show you guys some of this stuff on HP tuners, but until then I don't want to just struggle on the laptop. But I did get it to run good, and it's running pretty good now on the 800cc Decapped injectors. It runs just like factory, no problems. But yeah, I do have the MAF deleted. Mass airflow is not being used, only for the intake air temperature sensor, and I want to install the other one in here. But this weekend, I think what I want to do is install the cam. So that is going to be the next phase of this process. Now that I got the injectors in, I'm ready. I'm going to do the camshaft and valve springs on this thing, and after I do that, then I'm ready to tune it, and I'll make sure that I tune this thing really nicely, get the cam tuned and dialed, and then it'll be time for the turbocharger. So thanks for watching this episode. This is going to conclude everything in this. If you guys have questions, definitely let me know, and if you want to see more of this, definitely give it a thumbs up and subscribe, because this is just beginning this build. So if you guys are jumping on now, then you're going to be in for a fun ride, because it's going to be cool. I'm excited to start building the turbo kit and fabbing all that stuff up, because I think it's going to be pretty cool what I end up doing. It always ends up being a fun experience with these kind of turbo projects, but this is the best part of the project to me. I made the Honda look good and all that stuff, and I'll take you guys, if you guys are interested in the Honda, I'll take you guys for an update. But I fixed this thing last night. I worked on it, and I ended up getting it fixed. Hopefully not temporarily, hopefully forever, but I'm assuming it's temporary. What happened was I was having a problem with ignition breakup, and I keep like fixing it temporarily and then it comes back. And we messed with a couple of things last night, and I think that it's either going to be the main coil wire or maybe something with the injector wiring, because those are two things that I touched, and we got it to run correctly. And driving it to work and back, and on a test drive last night to get some fuel, went really well, and everything's running really well, and I'm happy with how it's running. So all in all, stoked with the car. I'm just driving it, enjoying it now. I'm just going to keep it clean, worry about the little things, and focus on working on the truck. Just try to daily this thing and have a good time. I also didn't mention this taillight, but I guess whatever I used to glue it was not enough, and this piece has fallen down. I don't really know what I want to do. My game plan is pretty non-existent. I'm worried I'm gonna mess this up trying to pry it out again. I really would not like to take it off, but it is what it is. Kind of makes me upset, but this is bound to happen. That's why I didn't really want to sell these things, because I knew there were going to be problems. But this one is still holding up. But I think that one was pulling on it a little bit, so I'm gonna have to use something stronger to affix it, and or put a pin in it or something like that. I just got to make sure that I keep it firmly attached, because that can't happen again. That's no fun. So I gotta see if I can do something about that, and hopefully I don't have to wreck it and repaint it or anything like that, but I may just leave it for now because of that. But anyway, I got all my tools here to change the camshaft out in the truck, so I'm gonna unload this stuff, and we'll get to work. Thanks for watching, guys, and hopefully you enjoyed the quick Honda update. There'll be more videos of the Honda coming up. Don't you worry. Alright, peace, guys.